You know, when you think about Elon Musk and Tesla, it's a story that feels like a modern legend, right? It's completely changed our world. But like any great legend, there are two fiercely competing versions. One is this epic tale of a visionary hero, and the other, well, that's a story of a massive corporate heist. So that's what this is all about. Which one is it? Is Elon Musk the visionary founder who literally risked everything for his ideals? Or is he a corporate fraud who stole a company and just rewrote history to fit his narrative? To figure this out, we've got to look at both stories. And we'll start with the one we think we know. Okay, so first up, let's dive into that heroic narrative. You know, the story of this tiny startup that took on the giants of the auto industry and somehow, against all odds, actually won. This story kicks off in 2008 with the Roadster. I mean, this was the car that proved electric vehicles could be, well, cool. Then came the Model S, and this wasn't just a great EV, it was named the best car, period. The revolution just kept rolling with the Model 3. And get this, by 2023, the Model Y wasn't just the top-selling electric car, it was the best-selling car on the entire planet. In this version of the story, the results just speak for themselves. But here's the thing, this success didn't come easy. Not at all. This side of the story is all about the struggle. Musk famously called the manufacturing challenges production hell. I mean, this was a time when he was literally living at the factories, sleeping on the floor, pushing his team to the absolute brink just to keep the company from going bankrupt. The narrative here is one of pure, unadulterated grit. And what was the result of all that struggle? A company valued at over $800 billion. To really let that sink in, that's more than the next 10 biggest automakers combined. It's a truly staggering number. And then there's this. This image is really the peak of that heroic story. A Tesla Roadster launched into space by SpaceX. A literal car floating among the stars. It's the ultimate symbol, right? Of a guy and a company that didn't just break the rules. They completely rewrote what we thought was even possible. Okay, but what if that story isn't the whole story? Now we've got to turn to the other side, a competing account that suggests the legend we just heard isn't just missing a few details, it's a carefully built lie. This counter-narrative, it kicks off with a really shocking claim. It basically asks us to question the entire foundation of the Tesla story. It frames it not as a revolution, but as maybe the greatest corporate heist of our time. See, this whole narrative hinges on one single crucial fact. Elon Musk did not start Tesla. The company was actually incorporated back on July 1st, 2003, by two engineers, Martin Eberhard and Mark Tarpenning. Musk came in a year later as the lead investor and chairman of the board. So this timeline tells a very different story. After Musk invested and got control of the board, the original CEO, Martin Eberhard, was pushed out in 2007. A lawsuit followed, and it ended with a settlement that let several people, including Musk, call themselves a founder. But in the public mind, really only one name ever stuck. And Martin Eberhard himself, he described his ousting pretty vividly. He said he was, and I'm quoting here, literally voted off the island by a board that Musk controlled. This narrative really paints a picture of a systematic, pretty ruthless takeover. All right, so we have two totally different origin stories. Now let's dig into the core claims about Tesla's innovation and its success, because this is where the stories really, really diverge. Let's take that first car, the Roadster. In the heroic view, it's a total game changer. But the critical view? It points out that it was basically a Lotus Elise body with an electric motor stuffed inside. And the company lost money on every single one they sold, pushing them right to the edge of collapse. And what about that term production hell? Well, the hero narrative sees a noble struggle. The counter-narrative, though, describes it as pure desperation, chaotic conditions, building cars in a literal tent in the parking lot, and immense pressure to ship defective vehicles just to meet Musk's, impossible promises. So this brings us to the question of where Tesla's success actually came from. The heroic view says it's pretty much all pure innovation. But the critical view argues that government bailouts and taxpayer subsidies played a much, much bigger role, maybe even an essential one. Specifically, this counter-narrative points to one thing, a massive $465 million loan from the Department of Energy back in 2010. The claim here is simple. Without this taxpayer-funded bailout, Tesla would have gone bankrupt long before the Model S ever hit the road.
And it goes way beyond just the finances. The critical view details a whole list of really serious allegations. We're talking about claims of worker exploitation and systemic racism in its factories, accusations of using card data to spy on customers, and even a pattern of stock manipulation and intimidation of anyone who dared to be critical.
So at the center of both of these stories, of course, is the man himself. Let's really compare the two wildly different versions of Elon Musk. You know, one story describes his method as vision followed by just relentless execution. He sees the future and then he goes and builds it. Simple. But the other story adds a third really crucial step: manipulation. The ability to take credit for other people's work and then convince the world that it was his genius all along. And what about SpaceX? In one view, it's Musk's other noble obsession, saving humanity by going to Mars. The critical view, however, calls it a shell game, claiming that shared employees and resources between the two companies create these massive, undisclosed conflicts of interest. So, in the end, the heroic narrative concludes that this isn't really a story about cars at all. It's about vision, it's about belief, and it's about the willingness to risk absolutely everything for an idea that you believe can change the world. But the counter-narrative? It offers a much, much darker conclusion. It frames Musk not as a creator, but as a master illusionist whose greatest creation was the myth of his own genius. And so, this is where we land. We're left with two stories, the hero and the heist, that are just completely at odds with each other. Both narratives use facts, timelines, and quotes to back themselves up, yet they paint two fundamentally different realities. They just can't both be true. Which, leaves us with one final big question. One of these stories has to be closer to the truth than the other. But when a myth is tied to a company worth over $800 billion, when a personal brand has the power to move entire markets with a single tweet, can we, the public, ever really separate the man from the myth? Can we ever truly know the truth?